We'll talk about phishing-resistant multi-factor authentication. Also do certain demos on that. While multi-factor authentication is strong enough, but that isn't a strong fighter when it comes to phishing attacks. So it is multi-factor authentication. So, for example, an MFA done using an authenticator application that is prone to phishing attacks. I'm talking about sophisticated phishing attacks like AITMs, MIT, your man in the middle or maybe advisory in the middle sort of an attack. There they can get the token which is already MFA'd, and that token can be, replayed to obtain the access to the resources. So it's not a phishing resistant, and a regular multi-factor authentication is not enough, at least when a sensitive resources are being accessed. We already have a template, a common conditional access template, which can require phishing resistant MFA. Just kind of going through this particular article, you can search for this article. Now, these are the recommendation. We recommend phishing resistant multi-factor authentication at least on these roles: global administrator, help desk administrator, user administrator. Exclusions for break glass accounts and also for the service accounts. Um, and they have detailed how do we kind of set this up, or how do we deploy this template. We go to intra.microsoft.com, go to protection, conditional access, new policy from the template, emerging threats, phishing resistant multi-factor authentication for administrator. We'll just review and create report only. Say created. So all we are saying, I mean, this can be to, the roles which we spoke about, select groups or directory roles. So as and when a normal user is elevated by the bad actor as a global administrator, then this policy would be applied to them. That is one way of looking at it. And the cloud apps can be all resources for them because they are sensitive users, or it can be, at least, the admin portals and certain resources of our choice. That's like up to us. We spoke about the exclusions and all. Now the grant controls, if you look at it, we are basically talking about grant access, phishing resistant MFA, right? That's what we are saying, that we need to satisfy this, only then you will be able to access the resource. What do we mean by that? Um, so in the authentication methods, or maybe I'll take a step back. So, as I said, the regular MFA, the MFA which, when I say regular MFA, multi-factor authentication done using an authenticator application that is not phishing resistant. What are phishing resistant MFAs? These are the phishing resistant MFAs. Again, you can search for this article, you can give this a read. Um, so these are the phishing resistant MFAs. FIDO, that's like the uh, top-notch in with regards to phishing resistant credentials. And then you have a Hello for Business. You also have Entra certificate based authentication. So this is a modern approach, the CBA, FIDO, and then Windows Hello for Business. This authenticator application, it is, not, it is basically prone to phishing resistant. It's prone to all the phishing attacks. So this is the gold standard. 502 is the gold standard of multi-factor authentication. Other methods, we'll not dig in deeper, but these are predominantly three methods which are available for you as a phishing resistant. The good news is MFA application, authenticator application, is also becoming phishing resistant. So again, that's a futuristic thing, and you can the passkey, which can be saved on the device, which can be leveraged as a phishing resistant. But right now it's not there, so we'll not talk about it right now. So stick with all whatever is made available for us. Coming back to the authentication methods here, so that'll be under the protection and then authentication methods, authentication strength. Here you can define what you mean by phishing resistant MFA. So if you go back to the conditional access policy, what you get to see in the drop down list, right? these are basically coming from this blade. So if you want to create your own phishing resistant, I mean, based on your requirement, you can create that. What and in the FIDOs and also the certificate-based authentication, you can see there are advanced option wherein you can define the OIDs or the security key identifier, specific numbers. This we'll talk about later, but this is another preview which is happening right now, wherein you can define your own authentication strength here. So we can just say, what do you mean by phishing resistant? In my I can say I'll say Windows Hello for Business, that's phishing resistant for me, and I can say click on next and then Windows Hello for Business and this and create. So likewise, I already have phishing resistant MFA which is pre-configured. So I can just click on it. It'll give me more details in terms of Windows Hello for Business or passkey or FIDO2 or certificate-based authentication. Either of any one, if the end user is able to satisfy or provide to Entra ID, then we will let him in, let him or her in. That's the whole idea. So on the conditional access policy, if we put up this policy for those administrators, then whenever they're trying to access any cloud resources or maybe the admin portal, they will be asked to present a phishing resistant credential. Unless not, until they do that, they will not be able to access it. So that's that. Now there is another. So if you have P2 or if you're using privileged identity manager as well, so you have one more option which is available for you. Uh, so that is basically using the auth context, right? So let me define an auth context first. So here in the, not here, I think it's under the conditional access authentication context. Here you can define an authentication context, right? So we can say new authentication context, phishing resistant authentication context. Give it some description which you can make some sense out of it. Push your application and then say C1 or something safe. So you have defined an authentication context here. Um, so this is the second method. Let's not get confused. So method number one, as I said, you create that particular conditional access from the template, apply that to certain set of uses, your deed is done. And how do you define, etc.? We have already spoken about it. Now, second method is basically if you have a privileged identity manager as a part of your Entra ID P2, then you can leverage the authentication context. And in the authentication context, you know, pretty much the same CA policy, but again, if you go to the target resources, you can drop it down and say authentication context here, possibly create a new policy, and then the one which we have created there, the authentication context we have created there, we're kind of marrying these two together. So there is an authentication context there which you have created, and you're basically saying the target resource is going to be this particular authentication context. Grant control, you have already defined, no changes here. Phishing resistant MFA. As I said, you can create your own only Hello or only FIDO or only, passkeys. Sorry, the CBA that can also be done. So, or it can be an OR thingy. Here, authentication context is included, and on the PIM policy, so you go to governance and then privilege identity manager, and when you create a just an example, we'll possibly pick up a application administrator. And here, based on your requirement, like whatever that eligible administrator, so they would not have any standing access to any of the resources. John, as an eligible administrator, goes to the entra.microsoft.com and then he elevates himself to the administrator role. When he does that, when he elevates himself as an application administrator, we're going to say activation authentication context here, the prac, the one which we have created there, right? So so it's like we're kind of tying everything together. We create a PIM, and the PIM we are going to have a authentication context. On the authentication context, we're calling a conditional access policy. On the conditional access policy, we are making sure a phishing resistant credential is provided. Only then the administrator will be able to go further and then access the resources. Or you can keep it simple. You don't have a PIM, you can just go ahead and access the conditional access policy, and then on that also you can directly apply. That's how you apply the phishing resistant MFA. Thank you.